The monk sat perfectly still in the MRI machine. Scientists watched the monitors. Then something happened that shouldn't be possible. The readings spiked so high, the researchers thought their equipment was broken. They ran diagnostics. Everything checked out. The machine was fine, which meant the monk's brain was doing something no human brain should be able to do. This is the story of how ancient monks broke modern science and what it means for your brain right now. For 2,500 years, Buddhists have been making wild claims about meditation. That it changes your mind, that it rewires your brain, that it can transform who you are at a fundamental level. Western scientists heard this and rolled their eyes. Superstition, they said. Religious nonsense. Show us the data. So they did. And everything changed. The year is 2004. A neuroscientist named Richard Davidson has a problem. He spent his career studying emotions and the brain at the University of Wisconsin. He's respected, published, tenured, but he's hit a wall. The brain imaging technology is incredible, but something's missing. He can see what happens when people get angry, or sad, or happy, but he can't find anyone whose brain does anything truly different. Everyone's scans look basically the same. Then he meets a Tibetan monk. Not just any monk, a man named Mathieu Ricard. This guy has a PhD in molecular genetics from one of the top universities in France. He could have been a famous scientist. Instead, he moved to the Himalayas and became a Buddhist monk. He's been meditating for over 30 years, hours every single day. Davidson asks him to meditate inside an MRI machine while wearing a cap covered in sensors, 128 electrodes attached to his scalp, measuring his brain activity. Ricard agrees. They tell him to do loving-kindness meditation, the practice where you cultivate compassion for all living beings. He closes his eyes. Within seconds, the monitors go crazy. The scientists see something they've never seen before. Gamma waves. These are the fastest brain waves humans produce, associated with high-level information processing and consciousness. Normal people produce tiny bursts of gamma waves. We're talking barely measurable. Ricard's brain is producing gamma wave activity that's off the charts, levels that shouldn't exist in a human brain. The scientists literally think their equipment is malfunctioning. They check everything, run diagnostics, test the sensors. Everything's working perfectly, which means this monk's brain is actually doing this. They bring in more monks. Same results. These aren't just experienced meditators. These are people with 10,000, 20,000, 40,000 hours of meditation practice, and every single one of them shows brain activity that breaks the normal patterns. The scientific community loses their minds, because this means something profound. It means the brain can be trained to operate in completely different ways than we thought possible. It means meditation isn't just relaxation or stress relief. It's fundamentally changing how the brain works. But that's just the beginning. Around the same time, a researcher named Sara Lazar at Harvard is running a different kind of study. She's not looking at brain activity. She's looking at brain structure, physical matter, gray matter to be specific. She recruits people who've never meditated before, complete beginners. She scans their brains with an MRI to get a baseline. Then she puts them through an 8-week meditation program. Just 8 weeks, about 27 minutes a day on average. After 8 weeks, she scans their brains again. The results make no sense, at least not according to what neuroscience believed at the time. Their brains have physically changed, not in some subtle, maybe sort of way. In a clear, measurable, holy crap, look at that way. Parts of their brains have literally grown. The hippocampus, which handles memory and learning, has more gray matter, thicker, denser. The temporoparietal junction, involved in empathy and perspective-taking, has grown. The posterior cingulate cortex, which gets activated during mind-wandering and self-referential thinking, has increased in density. And here's the kicker. The amygdala has shrunk. The amygdala is your brain's alarm system. It processes fear, anxiety, stress. It's the part that freaks out when you're in danger. In modern life, it freaks out about emails and traffic and bills and what someone said to you at work. After just 8 weeks of meditation, it physically shrinks. The change is visible on the brain scan. Lazar publishes her findings. The scientific community has a collective existential crisis, because up until this point, mainstream neuroscience believed the adult brain was mostly fixed. Sure, you could learn new things, make new connections, but the actual structure, the physical matter, that was set by your mid-20s. Your brain was what it was. Lazar's study proves that's wrong. The brain is plastic, moldable, changeable, even in adults, even in just 8 weeks. And meditation is the tool that changes it. But how? What's actually happening when you sit down and focus on your breath? Let's talk about what meditation does to your brain, step by step, in a way that makes sense. Think of your brain like a city. Different neighborhoods handle different jobs. There's the fear district, the memory district, the decision-making district, the mind-wandering district. When you meditate, you're essentially doing construction work on this city, strengthening some neighborhoods, shrinking others, building new highways between areas that didn't communicate well before. The prefrontal cortex sits right behind your forehead. This is your brain's CEO. It handles executive functions, decision-making, focus, self-control, planning, the ability to not eat the entire pizza even though you really want to. When you meditate, especially focused attention meditation where you concentrate on your breath or a mantra, you're working out this part of your brain like a muscle. And just like a muscle, it gets bigger and stronger with use. Studies show that regular meditators have thicker prefrontal cortexes than non-meditators, even accounting for age. This matters because as we get older, the prefrontal cortex normally thins out. We lose gray matter. Our decision-making gets worse. Our focus weakens. Meditators basically slow down or reverse this process. Their brains stay younger, structurally, than their age would predict. Now, let's go back to the amygdala, your fear center. In our evolutionary past, this thing kept us alive. Tiger in the bushes? Amygdala sounds the alarm. Your body floods with stress hormones. You run or fight. Problem is, the amygdala can't tell the difference between a tiger and your boss sending you a passive-aggressive email. It reacts the same way. Danger, danger, danger. Stress hormones. Racing heart. Anxiety. When you meditate, you're training yourself to observe these alarm signals without immediately reacting. You notice the anxiety. You feel the fear, but you don't automatically spiral into panic. You create space between the stimulus and the response. Over time, the amygdala literally shrinks. It becomes less reactive. The alarm system gets less sensitive. You still feel fear when appropriate, but you're not constantly on edge. The 8-week study showed this clearly. People who meditated for less than half an hour a day for 2 months had measurably smaller amygdalas. Their subjective reports matched. They felt less stressed, less anxious, calmer. Then there's the hippocampus. This seahorse-shaped structure handles memory formation and emotional regulation. Stress and depression actually damage the hippocampus. Chronic stress can shrink it. Meditation does the opposite. It increases gray matter density in the hippocampus. This means better memory, better learning, and better emotional regulation. You can handle difficult emotions without being overwhelmed by them. But here's where it gets really interesting. There's something called the default mode network. This is what your brain does when you're not focused on anything specific. When your mind wanders. For most people, mind wandering is negative. We ruminate, we worry, we replay embarrassing moments from 10 years ago. We imagine future disasters. We get lost in stories about ourselves. Me, my, mine. My problems, my fears, my desires, my insecurities. Brain scans show that the default mode network lights up during all this self-referential thinking. And guess what? People with depression and anxiety have overactive default mode networks. They can't stop thinking about themselves and their problems. Meditation quiets this network. Significantly, experienced meditators show reduced activity in the default mode network, even when they're not meditating. It becomes a trait change, not just a state change. They spend less time lost in negative thought loops, less time obsessing over themselves. Buddhism has talked about this for 2,500 years. The monkey mind, the endless chatter, the illusion of a solid, permanent self that needs constant attention. Modern neuroscience just found the brain regions responsible for it, and meditation turns down the volume. There's also the posterior cingulate cortex. This area activates when you're thinking about yourself, your identity, your story, me as a person with a history and a future. Meditators show decreased activity here. They literally spend less time wrapped up in self-centered thinking. This matches the Buddhist concept of anatta, or non-self. The idea that our sense of being a solid, unchanging self is an illusion, a construct. You don't need to believe in Buddhist philosophy for this to be useful. Less self-obsession means less suffering. When you're not constantly thinking about yourself, you're more present, more open, less defensive, less anxious. Science is proving what Buddhism discovered through direct observation. Your sense of self is a pattern of brain activity, and that pattern can change. But not all meditation is the same. Different practices create different brain changes. Let's break this down. Focused attention meditation is like weightlifting for your attention span. You pick something to focus on, usually your breath. Every time your mind wanders, you notice and bring it back, over and over, thousands of times. This strengthens the brain networks involved in sustained attention. The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex gets a workout. Studies show that people who practice focused attention meditation get better at tasks requiring concentration. They can maintain focus longer. They get distracted less easily. In our world of constant notifications and infinite scrolling, this is basically a superpower. Open monitoring meditation is different. This is what Buddhists call vipassana, or insight meditation. You don't focus on one thing. Instead, you observe whatever arises in your awareness. Thoughts, sensations, emotions. You watch them come and go without grabbing onto them. This practice reduces activity in the default mode network. It trains you to see thoughts as temporary events, not facts. A thought pops up. I'm such a failure. Instead of believing it and spiraling, you see it as just a thought, a mental event. It arises, it passes. Brain scans show that open monitoring meditation increases activity in areas involved in present moment awareness. The insula, which helps you sense what's happening in your body right now. You become more tuned in to actual experience rather than lost in stories about experience. People who practice open monitoring show better emotional regulation. They can feel difficult emotions without being controlled by them. Anger arises. They feel it in their body. They watch it. It peaks and subsides. They don't necessarily act on it. Then there's loving kindness meditation. This is what Matthew Ricard was doing when he broke the censors. You systematically cultivate feelings of compassion and goodwill, starting with yourself, then extending to others. This lights up different brain areas. The insula and temporal parietal junction, both involved in empathy and understanding others' perspectives, show increased activity. Multiple studies have found that loving kindness meditation makes people more pro-social, more helpful, more generous, less prejudiced. They feel more connected to strangers, more willing to help someone in need. The brain changes reflect this. Areas involved in empathy and positive emotions strengthen. The practice literally makes you more compassionate at a neurological level. Even walking meditation has unique effects. You bring mindful awareness to the physical act of walking, each step, each movement, each sensation. This integrates movement with awareness in ways that sitting meditation doesn't. Brain scans show different activation patterns. The motor cortex is involved, obviously, but combined with the same awareness networks activated in sitting practice. For people who struggle to sit still, this can be just as powerful. The point is, different practices train different mental capacities, and all of them create measurable brain changes. Let's talk about what these brain changes actually mean for your life, because that's what matters, right? Not brain scans, but real benefits. Start with stress. This is the big one. Stress is killing us. Literally. Chronic stress contributes to heart disease, diabetes, depression, weakened immune system, faster aging. It's a modern epidemic. Meditation lowers cortisol, your main stress hormone. This isn't subjective. You can measure it in blood tests. Studies show that regular meditators have lower baseline cortisol levels than non-meditators. When stressful things happen, their cortisol spikes less and returns to baseline faster. A doctor named John Kabat-Zinn developed an 8-week program called mindfulness-based stress reduction in the 1970s. Thousands of people have gone through it. Hundreds of studies have tested it. The results? Significant reductions in stress, anxiety, and depression. Effect sizes comparable to medication for some conditions. Improvements in sleep, pain management, quality of life. This program is now used in hospitals, clinics, schools, and corporations around the world. It works. The data is overwhelming. For anxiety and depression specifically, the research is compelling. Multiple meta-analyses looking at dozens of studies show that meditation helps, not as much as therapy or medication for severe cases, but enough to matter. And for mild to moderate anxiety and depression, sometimes just as effective. Here's why. Anxiety and depression both involve rumination, getting stuck in thought loop. For anxiety, it's worrying about the future. For depression, it's dwelling on the past or feeling hopeless about the future. Meditation breaks these loops. You learn to observe thoughts without getting pulled into the story. The thought "I'm going to fail" appears. Instead of spiraling into catastrophizing, you see it as a thought, just a mental event. You don't have to believe it or argue with it. You can let it pass. Over time, this becomes automatic. The brain literally rewires to be less reactive to negative thoughts. Important caveat though, meditation isn't a replacement for professional treatment. If you have serious depression or anxiety, see a therapist. Take medication if needed. Meditation can be a powerful tool alongside treatment, but it's not magic. Pain management is another area with strong evidence. When you're in pain, two things are happening. There's the physical sensation, and there's your mental response to it. The suffering, the resistance, the fear. Why is this happening? Will it ever stop? I can't take this anymore. Brain scans show that meditation changes how pain is processed. Meditators still feel pain. The sensory input reaches their brain, but areas involved in the emotional response to pain show less activity. They're not layering suffering on top of the sensation. Studies with chronic pain patients show significant improvements. Less pain intensity, less pain-related distress, better quality of life. They're not cured. The pain is still there, but they suffer less. The immune system also responds to meditation. Studies show increased antibody production after meditation training, faster recovery from illness, reduced inflammation markers in the blood. The mind-body connection is real. Chronic stress weakens your immune system. Meditation reduces stress. Therefore, meditation helps your immune system. It's not complicated, but maybe the most exciting finding is around aging. Your chromosomes have protective caps called telomeres. Think of them like the plastic tips on shoelaces. Every time your cells divide, telomeres get a little shorter. When they get too short, cells can't divide properly. This is aging at a cellular level. Stress and depression accelerate telomere shortening. You age faster. Multiple studies have found that meditation slows telomere shortening. Some even show telomere lengthening after intensive meditation retreats. Meditators have longer telomeres than non-meditators of the same age. Their cells are literally younger. Brain volume studies show the same thing. As we age, we lose brain volume. Gray matter thins. This is normal. But long-term meditators show preserved brain volume. Their 50-year-old brains look more like 40-year-old brains structurally. This might protect against Alzheimer's and dementia. The research is still early, but promising. Anything that preserves brain structure and cognitive function as we age is worth paying attention to. Sleep is another big one. Studies show meditation improves sleep quality. People fall asleep faster, sleep deeper, wake up less during the night. Insomnia symptoms decrease. This makes sense. Sleep problems often come from an overactive mind. You lie in bed and can't stop thinking. worrying, planning, rehashing the day. Meditation trains you to let thoughts go, to settle into the present moment. That skill transfers to bedtime. Meditators show different brainwave patterns during sleep. More delta waves associated with deep, restorative sleep. Better sleep means better everything else. Mood, focus, immune function, metabolism. It all improves. So here's the question everyone asks. How long does this take? When do you see results? The honest answer is, it depends. But the research gives us some guideposts. Short-term changes happen fast, within days to weeks. Studies show stress reduction after just a few sessions. Even 10 to 20 minutes a day can shift how you feel. You might sleep better, feel a bit calmer, notice yourself reacting less to small annoyances. These are subjective changes. You feel different. Brainwave patterns start shifting, but you wouldn't see structural changes on a brain scan yet. Medium-term changes take weeks to months. 8 weeks keeps coming up in studies. That seems to be a threshold. 2 months of consistent practice, around 20 to 30 minutes a day, and you start seeing measurable brain structure changes. Gray matter increases in the hippocampus. The amygdala shrinks. Attention networks strengthen. These aren't huge changes, but they're real and measurable. This is also when practice starts to feel easier. The habit forms. You stop debating whether to meditate. You just do it, like brushing your teeth. Long-term changes take years. The monks in those early studies had 10,000 to 40,000 hours of practice. That's meditating multiple hours every day for decades. Those guys show dramatic brain differences, massive increases in gamma wave activity, significant structural changes. Basically, their brains operate differently than normal human brains. But here's the thing. You don't need to be a monk. You don't need 10,000 hours. Even moderate practice creates meaningful changes. There's a dose-response relationship. More practice generally equals more benefits. But it's not linear. The difference between 0 minutes and 20 minutes a day is huge. The difference between 20 minutes and 2 hours is less dramatic. Find what's sustainable. 10 minutes every day is better than 1 hour once a week. Consistency matters more than duration. Quality matters too. 20 minutes of focused, engaged practice beats an hour of spacing out. You're training your mind. You have to actually pay attention. And the changes build on each other. The longer you practice, the deeper it goes. What felt difficult at first becomes easier. What seemed impossible becomes possible. Your baseline shifts. This isn't about reaching some endpoint. There's no finish line. It's about trajectory, about the direction your mind is moving. Now, let's pump the brakes for a second, because we need to talk about the problems with meditation research. Not all studies are created equal. Many early meditation studies had small sample sizes, like 15 or 20 people. That's not enough to draw strong conclusions. The placebo effect is real. If people expect meditation to help, they'll report feeling better, even if nothing changed. Subjective reports are valuable, but they're not objective. Publication bias is also an issue. Studies showing positive results are more likely to get published than studies showing no effect. This skews what we see in the literature. The meditation research might look better than it actually is, because negative results sit in filing cabinets unpublished. Control groups are tricky with meditation. In drug trials, you can give people a sugar pill and they don't know if it's real. How do you do that with meditation? Everyone knows if they're meditating or not. Some studies use active controls, like listening to audiobooks, but it's not perfect. There's also the question of long-term meditators. Matthew Ricard and those monks aren't a random sample. They're people who chose to dedicate their lives to meditation. They might have unusual brains to begin with. Maybe that's why they stuck with it. We can't know for sure if meditation changed their brains or if they started with different brains. The only way to know would be to scan people before they start meditating and follow them for decades. Some studies are doing this, but the data is still coming in. And here's the big one. Science can measure brain changes. It can measure stress hormones and immune markers and sleep quality. It can track attention and emotional regulation, but it can't measure enlightenment. It can't measure the deep states of absorption that advanced meditators describe. The jhanas, the profound shifts in perception and consciousness. It definitely can't measure liberation, freedom from suffering, the end of craving. These are the actual goals of Buddhist meditation. Brain scans can show that something is happening, but they can't capture the subjective experience. The quality of consciousness, the sense of profound peace or insight or freedom, this is the hard problem of consciousness. Science is great at measuring objective phenomena, but subjective experience is tricky. You can scan my brain all you want. You'll never know what it's like to be me, to have my experiences. So the science validates certain aspects of meditation, the measurable, quantifiable aspects, but it misses the deeper purpose. There's also the question of when meditation isn't enough. Meditation is powerful, the evidence is clear, but it's not a cure-all. If you have severe depression, trauma, psychosis, or other serious mental health issues, meditation alone probably won't fix it. You need professional help, therapy, maybe medication. Meditation can be part of your healing, but not the whole solution. Some people actually have negative experiences with meditation. This isn't talked about enough. There's even a term for it, the dark night. Based on descriptions from contemplative traditions of difficult periods during intensive practice, some people experience increased anxiety, disturbing thoughts or images, dissociation, depersonalization, A sense of meaninglessness or existential dread. This seems to happen more with intensive practice, long retreats, many hours a day. But it can happen to anyone. The research on this is still developing. We don't fully understand who's at risk or how to prevent it, but it's real. Meditation can stir up difficult psychological material. This is why proper instruction matters. A good teacher can help you navigate challenges, can tell you when to ease off, when to seek additional support. Apps and YouTube videos are great for introducing people to meditation, but they can't replace a skilled teacher who knows you and can guide you through rough patches. There's also the commercialization problem. Meditation has become a wellness trend, a commodity. Apps making bold claims, corporations using mindfulness to help employees be more productive without addressing the systemic issues causing their stress in the first place. Some people call this McMindfulness, taking meditation out of its ethical and philosophical context and turning it into a productivity hack or relaxation technique. Traditional Buddhist meditation is embedded in an ethical framework. You practice generosity, ethical conduct, and meditation together. The goal isn't to become a better worker or reduce your health insurance costs. It's liberation from suffering. When you strip meditation of that context, you get something different, not necessarily bad, but different, shallower. The science studies secular meditation, mindfulness-based stress reduction, loving kindness divorced from Buddhist cosmology. That's fine. It helps people, but it's not the full picture. You can use meditation to become a more focused, less stressed, more productive person within the same system that's causing suffering. Or you can use it to question the system itself, to see through the illusions. To radically change how you relate to existence, the brain scans can't tell the difference. So why does all this scientific validation matter? For a lot of people, it makes meditation accessible. If you're skeptical of religion or spirituality, the science gives you permission to try it. You don't have to believe in rebirth or karma or enlightenment. You just have to trust that 8 weeks of practice might shrink your amygdala and thicken your prefrontal cortex. That's enough. That opens the door. The science has brought meditation into mainstream culture. Hospitals use it. Schools teach it. Therapists recommend it. Prisons offer it to inmates. The military trains soldiers in mindfulness. None of this would have happened based on ancient texts alone. The MRI scans and peer-reviewed studies gave meditation credibility in Western institutions. That's valuable. More people benefiting from meditation is good. But there's also something profound happening here. A convergence. The Buddha lived 2,500 years ago. He didn't have brain scanners or neuroscience. He had his mind. He sat down and observed how his mind worked. Through direct experience, he figured out the nature of suffering and how to end it. He described mental processes, how attention works, how thoughts arise and pass, how craving creates suffering, how training the mind creates freedom. Modern neuroscience is discovering the brain mechanisms underlying what he described. The default mode network is the monkey mind. The decreased activity in self-referential processing is anatta. The changes in the amygdala are the reduction of dukkha. Two completely different approaches, one contemplative and introspective, one scientific and objective, both arriving at compatible conclusions. The Buddha's observations about the mind match what brain scans show. That's remarkable. But here's the thing. The science explains how meditation works. Neuroplasticity, brain region activation, neurotransmitter regulation. Buddhism explains why it works and what to do with it. The purpose, the context, the ultimate goal. Both are valuable. The science makes meditation respectable and accessible. Buddhism gives it depth and direction. You don't need brain scans to know if meditation is working. You know, based on your experience. Are you less reactive? More present? Suffering less? That's the real proof. The research is compelling. It satisfies the skeptical mind. But your direct experience is what matters. Here's the profound realization at the heart of all this. The monk in the MRI machine with impossible gamma wave activity. The Harvard study showing brain structure changes in 8 weeks. The thousands of studies on stress reduction and immune function and emotional regulation. All of it points to one simple truth. Your mind is trainable. Your brain is changeable. You have more control over your inner experience than you think. The Buddha never had $1 million brain scanner. He never published in peer-reviewed journals. He just sat down and paid attention, and he figured out something that science is only now confirming. You're not stuck with the brain you have. You're not doomed to anxiety or stress or reactivity. You're not at the mercy of your thoughts and emotions. You can change, fundamentally, measurably. At the level of brain structure and function, meditation is the tool. The evidence is overwhelming. The question is whether you'll use it. 8 weeks, 27 minutes a day. That's all it took in the Harvard study to see measurable brain changes. 2 months of your life, half an hour a day. What would it be worth to have a calmer mind? Better focus? Less stress? More compassion? The science has validated what contemplatives have known for millennia. Your mind is not fixed. Your patterns are not permanent. Change is possible, not through positive thinking or affirmations or believing hard enough, through actual training, systematic practice, working with your mind the way you'd work with your body at a gym. The monks who broke the brain scanners didn't start out special. They just practiced. Hours and hours and hours, for years. You don't need to be a monk. You don't need decades, but you do need to start. The research is compelling. The benefits are real. Less stress, less anxiety, better focus, more compassion, slower aging. better sleep. Your brain is plastic. It can change. The question is, will you train it? So what have we learned? 2,500 years ago, a man sat under a tree and discovered something profound about the human mind. He taught methods to transform mental suffering. For centuries, people practiced. Some experienced dramatic changes, liberation, even. Western science ignored this for a long time. Then, around 2000, researchers started putting monks in brain scanners. What they found shocked them. The meditators' brains were different. Not just functioning differently. Structurally different. More gray matter in some areas, less in others. Activity patterns that shouldn't be possible. Then they tested regular people. 8 weeks of meditation, 27 minutes a day. Same results. Brain changes. Measurable. Reproducible. Thousands of studies followed. Stress reduction, anxiety relief, better focus, increased compassion, improved immune function, slower cellular aging. Different meditation practices create different brain changes. Focused attention strengthens attention networks. Open monitoring quiets the default mode network. Loving kindness activates empathy circuits. The benefits are dose-dependent. More practice generally means more change, but even short daily practice helps. 10 minutes is infinitely better than 0. The science isn't perfect. Small sample sizes, placebo effects, publication bias. Lots of questions remain, and science can't measure everything. Not the deep subjective experiences, not enlightenment, not liberation. But what it can measure is impressive. Real changes, meaningful benefits, validation of ancient wisdom. Here's what matters. The Buddha discovered through direct observation what brain scans now confirm. Your mind is trainable, your brain is plastic, you can change. Not through belief, through practice. The research explains how, Buddhism explains why and what to do with it. Both are valuable. Together, they point to something profound. You're not stuck. Your anxiety isn't permanent. Your reactivity can change. Your mind can be trained. The evidence is overwhelming. The methods are accessible. The question is whether you'll try, because knowing meditation works doesn't help unless you actually meditate. The monk in the MRI machine didn't read about meditation. He practiced for decades. That's why his brain broke the sensors. You don't need decades, but you do need to start. Today, tomorrow, this week, your brain is waiting, ready to change, ready to grow. The science has proven it's possible. Now it's up to you. If this made you see meditation differently, do leave your comments below and tell me what you think. Give me some love. Hit subscribe for more videos exploring ancient wisdom through a modern lens.